Welcome back to another episode of the Coach's Corner. This is your chance to spend 10 minutes with me talking about something vitally important, asked frequently, or just something I want to teach you as a young student of mine. And this week, I really wanted to dive into recovery and what that means. So, a big pillar in terms of my company, my life as an athlete, my training career has been recovery based performance. And what that means realistically is most of us focus on the exercise concept, the excelling concept, the output. And most people don't think about the input. And what's really interesting is every high level coach or athlete that I've ever gotten to work with, the first thing they think about is the recovery. And it's a really powerful mindset and tool that I'm trying to give you. It's the reason why Vibrant was created, and sleep was the first thing we went after, right? So, what is recovery? What do we think about when we hear the buzzword? Because let's face it, everyone talks about it, but how many people actually can really throw it at me, the coach? This is what recovery is. And what I want you, as the new student of the game, young student of the game, to think about recovery is an opportunity for your body to rest and repair. That has many different meanings and comes in many different shapes and sizes. And I wanted to break that down for you today. First and foremost, in my headspace, and there's many more that you could probably think about, I kind of categorized what recovery is into like four specific big buckets or big types. First, we have like circulation. So, well, I'll just rattle them off. First, we have circulation, then we have muscular, then we have tissue work, and I differentiate those. As in, finally, we have nervous system. And I believe that in each of those buckets, you need to be putting some coins. You need to be making sure you're appropriately addressing issues that your body is going through each and every week to realistically perform at your best. And so let's break it down. So circulatory is anything involving your breathing. Blood pressure is going to involve your circulation as a whole. This is going to be things like low intensity cardio. This is going to be things like breath work, monitoring stress and hormones. This is going to be things that help you be more efficient at removing inflammation. So hot, cold therapies, things that are forcing your body, and let's just take it, blood, heart, cardiovascular system, to work in the sense of repair. And so I say that meaning I get into hot cold therapy. I am forcing my circulation in my blood to do what's called contrasting. And that is where it's going to open up when I get in a hot tub. It's going to flush blood through the system, constrict, flush it back to the heart. And then we go through that kind of sequence over and over again. That is using your circulatory system for recovery. Next, we have muscular. And I view this more as the dynamic side of things. So that's going to be stretching, yoga, dynamic movement, myofascial work, Eldoa is myofascial movement. Things that are looking at joint ranges of motion from a sense of activity, active ranges. When was the last time you went to the gym and spent 10 minutes and just focused on, can my joint move in the proper range? If not, where is it bound up and why? Which then leads me into my next point of tissue work. And I separate them because most people bind them together, but they're not. They're different. Tissue work is the actual manipulation of the tissue. So can I move this joint in good succession up and down through extension, flexion? If it's bound up, why is it bound up? Now enters tissue work. So they go hand in hand. They're harmonious, but I believe they are different because sometimes just doing something like this for a minute will actually create oxygen and space within the joint. It'll flush blood to it and it'll help it recover. So did I do any tissue work to get my joint to feel better? No. But for a swimmer, something like this is going to be really good. Just some quick, easy dynamic movement will help open it up. But for someone else, they might need soft tissue release. They might need acupuncture. They might need a massage, right? Trigger point, lacrosse ball work. This is again myofascial work because it's different when you're doing a dynamic movement versus a steady state trigger point. However, both myofascial. But what I mean by a tissue work is the bucket of actually working on tissue. working on the tension system that allows us to move our muscular system at its optimum ranges. This is repairing. Because if we think about when we break down tissue, when we go into the gym, we work really hard, we're kicking ass. When we then step away and go home, we sit on the couch, well, we're not really allowing the tissue time to move in its optimum range. So it constricts and it sits weird and we're hunched over typing at work and things like that. Well, that all plays into the fact that our muscular system is creating these tension lines that might not be right and forcing a skeletal system into improper ranges, right? Last but not least is we get into nervous system. And this is going to be a little bit more complex, but at the same time, pretty straightforward. Are you managing the amount of load you're taking in terms of stress? And what I mean by that is the body, at a rudimentary theory, sees stress as ones and zeros. That's it. Is it stress? Yes. Is it stress? No. Okay. That being said, family yells at you, stress. Workout is hard, stress. Work hard, stress. You didn't sleep at night, stress. You're hungry, stress. You're not hungry, stress. You have diarrhea, stress. We can go down the list. And there are things that are eustress with an EU, which is good stress. We have distress, which is bad stress. The only thing we can control is the workout. You can't control if your wife or husband is going to be a goober and yell at you. You can't control if your kid gets a bad grade. You can't control one night when something happens and you don't sleep well. We do the best we can to move with it, but you can control the outcome of your workout. And I always teach a balanced equation. If I see someone comes into the gym at 7 a.m. and they can barely move, I am not going to maximally load them. I'm going to do something that heals and still progresses them, still makes them better, but I'm monitoring the nervous system and allowing it to repair. And there's something called the CNS, which is called the central nervous system. And I believe all too often in amateur and young and beginner lifters and worker outers, no one thinks about the CNS. We have this culture where it's just go, 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 more, work out more, you're going to lose weight. No, the secret sauce is in the slow, in the recovery, in the repair. And the real goal is to give your body the least amount of stimuli for the maximum amount of success. So when I get into work with somebody and I'm asking them, what do you want your week to look like? And they're like, I'm going to work out 6 days a week. And I go, no, you're not. You're going to work out 3 days a week and you're going to recover twice a week and you're going to have 2 days off. And they go, oh, I can handle more than that. Show me. Prove it to me. Show me you can maintain that for 8, 10 weeks. Be consistent. And all of a sudden, 7, 8 weeks in, 9 weeks in, they go, this feels really good. It could take on more, maybe for a little bit, but it would peak them. It would take them too hard. So we just hold that. We focus on being optimal in our time in the gym, focused on being more energetic in the 3 or 4 hours, 3.5 hours that you get every week versus overdoing it 6 days a week, always giving me kind of vanilla pudding. So that last bucket is nervous system. And I'll repeat that. It's circulatory, muscular, like tissue work, and then it's nervous system. And you can do multiple things throughout the week and they check multiple buckets. So what do I mean? I like to teach for every decade over 30, you owe me 1 day of recovery. Meaning 30-year-olds get 1, 40-year-olds get 2, 50-year-olds get 3, 60-year-olds get 4. And that's days of recovery, meaning you're doing at least 15 to 20 minutes of something. Stretching, dynamic warm-up, hot, cold therapies, saunas, cryo chambers. I don't believe in them, but hyperbarics, chiropractics. I don't believe in chiropractics, but that's a different story. Soft tissue work, myofascial work, foam rolling, dynamic movement on the floor, yoga, and that counts. It doesn't matter what you put in there in the sense of, I just want you doing something. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Then from there, we start to think about, can I get one of each of those buckets a week? So the primed 50 or 60-year-old athlete lifting 2 or 3 times a week is giving me 1 day of a zone 2 cardio, maybe 2 if they're really feeling good, 1 day of 10 to 15 minutes of rolling out, really deep tissue work, 1 day of mobility work, right? Meaning they're sitting there on the mat and they're moving and stretching and turning and twisting, and then 1 final day of deep breath work or nasal breathing or box breathing. The secret sauce is to start to combine them. Can I sit in the sauna and do my box breathing for 5 minutes? Can I do my mobility work for 10 minutes every day before I train? Can I do some tissue work every day before I train? Then all of a sudden, we're starting to recover to perform. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a really big topic, and I know we're going to get more into it, but that's kind of your overview. And my challenge to you is, can you give me a circulatory, a muscular, a tissue work, and a nervous system piece every day, every single day, or at least once a week of each? Until next time, and I think that's all I've got on this.